Today is May 2nd, 2019. Coming up on Roland Martin Unfiltered, a jam-packed show. The mayor of Baltimore, Pugh, has quit, effective immediately after hundreds of thousands of dollars paid to her for children's books that somehow never got printed. We'll explain to you exactly what is happening there in Baltimore. That took place literally a couple of hours ago. Attorney General Bill Barr, why is he so scared of House Democrats? After he got his ass lit yesterday in the Senate, especially by Senator Kamala Harris, he said, no mas, I'm not showing up to the House. When are they going to issue a warrant for his arrest for contempt of Congress? Also, we're going to show you the full back and forth between Senator Kamala Harris and Bill Barr. Y'all, it was so juicy, I had to play it twice. Also, Facebook has banned a number of people, including Minister Louis Farrakhan. Hashtag, we tried to tell you that was going to happen. Also, Jamario Robinson was shot 76 times by cops in Atlanta. His mother is here to talk about the tragic loss of her son and why justice has still not been served. And also, we continue to remember Boys in the Hood director John Singleton. We're going to talk with the woman who was the one who read the script and who recommended to the movie executives that they should make this movie with John Friend. Stephanie Allen will join us right here. And also, a crazy conservative Candace Owens has quit Turning Point USA. But they've been calls for her to get fired from the group by other college chapters. Oh, y'all, I told y'all we got a hell of a show, and it's time to bring the funk on Roland Martin Unfiltered. Let's go. Folks, the political career of Pugh is over. The mayor of Baltimore, former state senator, former state rep, resigned today in disgrace after Baltimore Sun published reports that show that she took nearly $500,000 from various companies for children's books she wrote. But the problem is those children's books, for the most part, were never published. Today at 3:30 p.m., her attorney read a letter of resignation from another Baltimore City official who wrote it and delivered to him yesterday, saying that she needed to quit. This is after, of course, the Baltimore City Council voted for her to resign. She made clear she was never going to resign. She was going to resume her office when she returned from being gone for illness. She says she's been suffering from pneumonia, has been away for about a month, but it all came to an end today.
Thank you very much for coming. This is a sad day for Mayor Pugh and a sad day for the city of Baltimore. I have a brief statement from the mayor, and I will be taking no questions. The following is Mayor Pugh's statement. Dear citizens of Baltimore, I would like to thank you for allowing me to serve as the 50th mayor. It has been an honor and a privilege. Today, I am submitting my written resignation to the Baltimore City Council. I am sorry for the harm that I have caused to the image of the city of Baltimore and the credibility of the office of the mayor. Baltimore deserves a mayor who can move our great city forward. I want to thank all of our department heads and staff who work hard every day to improve the quality of life for all who live, work, and visit our city. I also thank Jack Young, the president of the City Council, for his steadfast leadership in my absence. I wish you well in your new role as mayor of Baltimore City. Sincerely, Catherine E. Pugh. Ms. Tixay from my office will provide you all with a copy of the mayor's letter of resignation effective immediately.
Again, it was $500,000 she took from the University of Maryland Medical Center, where she was a director overseeing business for that medical center. She has been under, also took $100,000 from Kaiser Permanente. The problem is that many of those books were never even published. It's been a very rocky tenure for Catherine Pugh, dealing with, of course, crime in the city, as well as the drama over a police chief. One particular, first of all, police chief resigned. Another person who she picked had issues. He had to step aside before they finally hired someone. She was a former majority leader in the Maryland Senate from 2015 to 2016, a state senator, a state delegate. She also, of course, served on the Baltimore City Council. And in addition to that, has a long history in media and previously worked as an independent editor on supplements for the Baltimore Sun. Again, and this is interesting. When she won the race, when she won the mayoral race, she beat back, of course, the first black female mayor of Baltimore, who she had to resign when she used gift cards that were given to the city that were meant for the city's poor. Talk about issues there in Baltimore. Joining us right now, our panel. Let's go right to them. Joseph Williams, senior editor, U.S. News and World Report. We have, of course, Greg Carr, chair, Department of Afro-American Studies, Howard University, and also Erica Savage Wilson, host of Savage Politics Podcast. This is obviously a swift downfall, Erica, for Catherine Pugh. You had the previous mayor who was highly criticized because of the Freddie Gray decision. Also, what happened there, she chose not to run for re-election. Pugh beat a host of candidates. Many folks said that she had the political experience to actually lead Baltimore. Now, as a result of this decision, talk about a swift downfall, and talk about someone who still has lots of answers after the FBI raided her office and her home and her lawyer's office and City Hall as a result of what some call these dealings under the table.
Exactly, and to include the IRS to let us know that this is something that, even though she resigned today, that it's not going to be over by a long shot. Right now, the city is really looking to move forward with the new leadership, with Mayor Young being in place. And I think what is most harmful in all of this is that Mayor Pugh, having won during a time where our current president was sworn into office, was really kind of like a symbol of hope. And so with these allegations that have now proven to be true, that are now charges, is really going to cause a lot more harm to some of the charities that were affiliated with that Healthy Hollies book, such as a charity that I think was up for renewal of a grant, and that grant is now being held up because of their now dealings with Mayor Hughes. So, I mean, it was a promise that definitely has unraveled, but I think most importantly is some of the nonprofit entities, people's careers have definitely been harmed over her poor decision making.
Greg, it was Sheila Dixon who was the previous, who was the first black female mayor of Baltimore, who had to resign with the use of those cards as well, who Pugh beat in the election to become mayor. And it just shows again how things can unravel quickly. But we talk about some $600,000 received, and then she stands up there and gives a news conference and says that 40,000 copies of those books, there's no evidence they were even printed. Okay, it was her company. And then she all of a sudden at this news conference pulls out a line of baby clothes. And folks are going, what the hell are you doing? And some believe that she's actually not ill, that this is really a cover because of all the drama she's been under. And so it's just craziness there, again, in Baltimore.
Yes, I mean, you know, strangely enough, though, I'm somewhat encouraged because there's a rule of law. $600,000 is no money. When the report came out yesterday night that foreign governments are renting out space in Trump Tower, there's no emoluments clause apparently in the United States Constitution. But as you covered on the show, man, we just left one of the highs in the history of Maryland politics and in this country. You got a black woman running the State House in Maryland who came as a consensus candidate after they couldn't get together. So Catherine Pugh getting caught up in a scandal. And I agree, Sis Savage, this is much deeper than some children's books. I mean, they're going full scale. There is a rule of law. Who cares what Larry Hogan thinks? At the end of the day, Baltimore's a black city, and they seem to course correct. Listening to the new mayor, Young, talk about what he's trying to do is encouraging to me. It's sad, but if this were 40 years ago, when black mayors were under serial attack, we might have a different perspective. But I'm encouraged by the fact that there seems to be some rule of law in Maryland, unlike apparently 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue.
Joseph, the fact that she was over this University of Maryland Medical, first of all, one of the directors, is taking money as a result of that. So you're making decisions and you're taking money from folks who bought your children's book. Who the hell knew she was even a children's author? And even to that amount, and other people actually were giving as well. And so the numbers could be anywhere from 700,000 to $1 million. We're still waiting to figure out what is that final number. People say, look, this is why you have ethics boards, why you have reports, and why you cannot be doing deals with people who are doing business with entities that you oversee as a politician.
Well, see, that's part of the problem, right? I mean, Baltimore, I have deep ties to the city. My relatives all live there. I got cousins, aunts, uncles, all live in Baltimore. I've grown up there practically half my life. And the city always seems to be snake bit at this sort of thing, where we've had a succession of mayors, Sheila Dixon, now Catherine Pugh, who had to resign under a cloud of scandal. So it's a bad look anytime this happens. It's even a worse look with a city that has chronically struggled with a homicide problem, with a poverty problem, and you have a mayor who arrived with such promise. I mean, as Erica was saying, a lot of things that are going to be hurt are charities and people that she had purported to help. So it's really unfortunate because if you unwind the deal a little bit further, you're talking about campaign contributions that were funneled through Healthy Holly. She self-funded part of her campaign through Healthy Holly. I mean, she had to know that this was going to show up at some point. And it's never a great look when the FBI comes out of your house with boxes and boxes of evidence. I mean, it's unrecoverable at this point, and she'd be fortunate to stay out of jail.
But it also speaks to an issue that she still has, of course, a state investigation. And yes, when the FBI is involved, now you talk about the IRS as well. And so, yes, she's going to be certainly fighting to keep her pension and to stay out of jail. And so we'll certainly see what happens with that. Also, folks, some other news that came out today, Facebook. They're banning a number of folks who they label as far-right leaders for various reasons. And one of the folks, first of all, Alex Jones, of course, his company InfoWars. Also, the absolutely nutty so-called journalist Laura Loomer. You have Milo, who is of course, used to be with Breitbart as well. And Paul Joseph Watson, Paul Nealon, an anti-Semite, who unsuccessfully ran for Congress in 2016 and 2018. But also you see on that list is Nation of Islam Minister Louis Farrakhan. This is what Facebook said. We've always banned individuals or organizations that promote or engage in violence and hate regardless of ideology. Begs the question, why is Louis Farrakhan on that list?
Because he's black. That's why he's on the list.
And for those folks who are viewing this either live or going to review this was the only show. This was the only news show of any background that said this was going to happen. We said that on this show. In other words, are they also banning the Nation of Islam? Because they said organizations affiliated with them. I'm saying, now, last I checked, Louis Farrakhan and Nation of Islam have not caused anybody to bust up in a place like Politics and Pros and try to shut down.
That was kind of my thought. It's like, okay, fine. Homophobia, okay,
yeah. No question.
Anti-Semitism.
No question.
But has anybody ever shot or killed anyone because of the influence of the Nation of Islam?
Well, brother,
how
if we go back to 1965 February, you have argument about Malcolm X.
Right.
But beyond that,
true enough.
That's a different conversation.
True enough. But we also are having a different conversation about the nature of violence.
Exactly.
I mean, Alex Jones has promulgated conspiracy theories. I mean, yes, you can sort of squint and you get there from Louis Farrakhan, right? But also, you were talking about a situation that's kind of out of context, right? I mean, Louis Farrakhan has been an advocate for African Americans, a marginalized people, right? And he's been a very strong and vociferous advocate for that. What I kind of wonder is whether or not he just got thrown on top of the pile.
Oh no, brother!
Just because?
No, this wasn't accidental. And
no, it wasn't accidental. But I'm saying it's like
connected to NAACP, Urban League. I mean,
that's what I'm saying.
Yes.
I mean, clearly it wasn't an accident. But I'm saying he's thrown on the pile to make it look good.
Oh,
I mean, you can't just have white supremacists get banned from Facebook because that looks bad.
Right.
I mean, it looks like you're going after white people and you're going to have a white problem, right? But if you toss Farrakhan on with them, suddenly it's an equal opportunity, equal opportunity banning of hate speech and problems, even though Farrakhan, to my knowledge, has not made a headline in years.
So is Farrakhan a far right-wing leader?
Well, that was just corrected in a publication where they did have him listed as a far right-wing leader.
They call him.
Extremist, right. And so, yeah, now he's an extremist.
Like Black Lives Matter.
Oh, absolutely. And so that's the other piece that you were talking about before the show. It's like, well, what other groups are they going to come after now? And I do agree that I do believe that Minister Farrakhan is a part of the pile, a part of kind of like the both sides. If we're going to do this, we need to do that to the other group. But I do think that this is really a time for us to understand why it's important that we have outlets like this, black media, that do uplift and bring to the surface all of these different things that do impact us, violence, things that don't get raised to the top, the gun violence that we've suffered as a community for many, many years, that now America is saying we have to do something about.
Well, here's what's interesting. You have conservative Ben Shapiro, who is coming to the aid of Louis Farrakhan. Here we go to my iPad. This is a tweet that he sent out. If they can't, they're not operating as platforms. They're operating as publishers. I despise Louis Farrakhan. But if they can't articulate how he has spoken beyond the boundaries of the First Amendment or some other objective standard, at the least, banning him is wrong.
He's not wrong about that. You know, I have students at Howard. They read Ben Shapiro, they listen to him, then they come and ask me all these questions. If you're talking about rule of law, again, First Amendment, we're talking about, is it hate speech? Have you incited violence? And again, I'm concerned because Farrakhan just spoke at Nipsey Hussle's funeral. So now you're going to start looking to try to ban the rappers? I mean, now we start talking about...
Well, no, but that also begs the question, okay, so Farrakhan did speak at Nipsey Hussle's funeral. So then the question then becomes, does that mean that any videos of Louis Farrakhan cannot be posted?
Come on, brother.
Now, I was reading some of the pieces here, and they say that individuals can still post things by them, except there's been InfoWars. No one can publicize their events and things along those lines. But I would be very curious to know exactly the rationale for each one. For each one, because I would, because
never see that.
Because here's the issue. The issue does come. What is your standard, and then who's next?
Because there is no standard. It's kind of you can look at the list and tell it's ad hoc almost. I mean, with the possible exception of well, I mean, Farrakhan's the only person who I can think of where there has not been some sort of violence or actual literal hate speech associated with those platforms. I mean, Milo is like a troll. Everybody knows that. And
well, Facebook could be saying that his comments with regards to Jews is hate speech.
Fair enough.
But violence, though.
But, well, I don't know. I mean,
you know what, Ava...
And that's why I would like an explanation.
Right.
I would.
Well, but see, that's why I don't think you will ever get one.
Well, I'll tell you what, though, Ava Muhammad and some of those lawyers in the Nation of Islam, they're not going to take this line down. They need to go to court. Let's just test the rule of law. Is there a First Amendment or is there not a First Amendment? If it's a hate speech exception, understand that. If it's fighting word exception, that's two. But what is Facebook? Because, again, I'm not on Facebook, but what is Facebook? It's a private business, right? So now we're beginning to test the limits, and you've got a guy sitting at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue who has suborned violence.
And actually, let's correct that, folks. Now, remember, Facebook also owns Instagram.
Right.
So they removed him from Facebook and Instagram.
Nation of Islam, probably.
Well, it just says Louis Farrakhan. So according to the Chicago Sun-Times, Facebook's official Facebook and Instagram pages, Farrakhan's official Facebook and Instagram pages had more than 1 million likes and followers before they were removed Thursday afternoon. His Twitter account with more than 336,000 followers remains active. And it says, post on Farrakhan's, here you can go to my iPad, post on Farrakhan's Facebook page often contain clips of his speeches and sermons, which has sometimes been streamed on Facebook Live. Many of those same clips are still posted to his Twitter account, where they have been viewed and shared several 100,000 times.
They've touched the third rail, one of the third rails of black politics. Louis Farrakhan did not speak at Aretha Franklin's funeral, but it wasn't because he didn't have the opportunity to speak. As you said, Roland, you live streamed that on this platform. Imagine if Farrakhan had gotten him a speech. Did you take that clip out? I mean, again, we've got a guy down 600 Pennsylvania Avenue. When you look at what he said about Ilhan Omar, and now she got to have increased security. I mean, as you said, what is the standard? I agree with you. We got to see some standards. They need to go to court and run this thing down to the sentence.
I don't know, but I know that they have definitely, Facebook has definitely been under a lot of a lot of heat because of their seems like inability to really say to white supremacists that, listen, we're not going to continue to allow you to place content on our particular platforms. And so Color of Change has been one of the organizations that's definitely been leading that fight. And so to kind of see that they've been doing that for years, to really pushing Facebook, pushing these social media, to include Twitter, to say to them that, listen, we're harmed by you all allowing these hate groups to continue to flourish on these platforms, and we've said that to you. So to see that they have removed some of them and to include Louis Farrakhan is a little bit curious.
And the enough is enough moment probably was the live streaming down in Australia, where not Australia but New Zealand, where the white guy shut up the mosque. In Christchurch, exactly. But still, I think that unless there are clear and hard and fast guidelines, I don't think they have them, and I think they would struggle to come up with them. It's going to be ruled as it's going to be seen as an injustice on more than one.
But and Color of Change and all these organizations need to be smart now. Don't be stupid. Anytime Ben Shapiro, who's an open enemy of so many things, comes out to defend Farrakhan, now you don't want to be trapped on the other side and say, well, we have to be fair and equal. Don't be stupid, because Black Lives Matter. These young people risking their lives in the street. This whole black identity extremist thing that the FBI tried to pull. This is a dangerous, slippery slope. Our people need to be smart now. Don't be dumb, because Ben Shapiro ain't no friend of Farrakhan. He's trying to protect himself.
Right. So it's going to be real interesting again to see what we also, according to the Chicago Sun-Times, Nation of Islam, they have not responded as a result. But I can guarantee you Farrakhan is going to have a response in the show. And I'll be, matter of fact, I'll be calling Farrakhan tonight to see if they're going to actually make a comment. I'd love to hear if he wants to chat tomorrow.
Wow.
Right here on our show.
So go ahead, protect Roland Martin Unfiltered at all costs.
We'll see what happens. Miss Farrakhan, you want to talk? We right here. We right here. We right here. And we stream on Facebook, YouTube, and Periscope. Wow. All right, folks. Bill Barr did not testify today before the House committee because he said, I ain't coming, because Chairman Jerry Nadler wanted staff attorneys to question him. And he felt that was beneath him. I really think it was because he got his ass whooped yesterday in the Senate, especially by Senator Kamala Harris. Now, today, House Speaker Nancy Pelosi came out and said that Barr absolutely lied to Congress, and the rule of law has to be followed as a result. And the question then becomes whether or not Democrats are going to have the guts to actually hold him in contempt. Are they going to send federal marshals to compel him to testify or throw him in jail? That's one of the issues. You also have the White House attorney who has sent a letter to Bill Barr stating that Donald Trump has ordered his aides to ignore subpoenas from Congress. That means that one of the three branches of government is saying we do not have to follow the law from another branch of government. Are we on the verge of a constitutional crisis? Now, one of the reasons Barr is really upset is because what happened yesterday when Democrats came after him with the full force, and there's no one else who laid the wood on him like California Senator Kamala Harris. Now we played some yesterday, but it was so good. I told my staff, no, we got to play the whole thing. I want you to see the full questioning of how Senator Kamala Harris bore in on AG Bill Barr and made him uncomfortable to the point where he literally was in that seat squirming. And I'm sure he was probably saying, he probably got a call from Jeff Sessions like, she did the same thing to me, Bill. Y'all roll the tape.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Attorney General Barr, has the President or anyone at the White House ever asked or suggested that you open an investigation of anyone?
I wouldn't.
Yes or no?
Could you repeat that question?
I will repeat it.
Yeah.
Has the President or anyone at the White House ever asked or suggested that you open an investigation of anyone? Yes or no, please, sir?
The President or anybody else?
Seems you would remember something like that and be able to tell us.
Yeah, but I'm trying to grapple with the word suggest. I mean, there have been discussions of matters out there that they have not asked me to open an investigation, but
Perhaps they've suggested?
I don't know. I wouldn't say suggest.
Hinted?
I don't know.
Inferred? You don't know. Okay. In your March 24th summary, you wrote that, quote, after reviewing the special counsel's final report.
But I will say that no one.
Sir, I'm asking a question. In your March 24th summary, you wrote that, quote, after reviewing the special counsel's final report, Deputy Attorney General Rosenstein and I have concluded that the evidence is not sufficient to establish that the president committed an obstruction of justice offense. Now, the special counsel's investigation produced a great deal of evidence. I'm led to believe it included witnesses' notes and emails, witnesses' congressional testimony, witnesses' interviews, which were summarized in the FBI 302 forms, former FBI Director Comey's memos, and the president's public statements. My question is, in reaching your conclusion, did you personally review all of the underlying evidence?
No, we took and accepted.
We accepted Mr. Rosenstein?
No, we accepted the statements in the report as the factual record. We did not go underneath it to see whether or not they were accurate. We accepted it as accurate and made our.
So you accepted the report as the evidence?
Yes.
You did not question or look at the underlying evidence that supports the conclusions in the report?
No.
Did Mr. Rosenstein review the evidence that underlines and supports the conclusions in the report, to your knowledge?
Not to my knowledge. We accepted the statements in the report,
Did
and
anyone
the
in
characterization of the evidence is true.
Did anyone in your executive office review the evidence supporting the report?
No.
No. Yet you represented to the American public that the evidence was not, quote, sufficient to support an obstruction of justice offense.
The evidence presented in the report. This is not mysterious process. In the Department of Justice, we have pros memos and declination memos every day coming up, and we don't go and look at the underlying evidence.
Sir, would you support
the characterization of the evidence as true?
As the Attorney General of the United States, you run the United States Department of Justice. If in any U.S. attorney's office around the country, the head of that office, when being asked to make a critical decision about, in this case, the person who holds the highest office in the land, and whether or not that person committed a crime, would you accept them recommending a charging decision to you if they had not reviewed the evidence?
Well, that's a question for Bob Mueller. He's the U.S. attorney. He's the one who presents the report.
But it was you who made the charging decision, sir. You made the decision not to charge the president.
No, in a pros memo and in a declination memo.
You said it was your baby. What did you mean by that?
It was my baby to decide whether or not to disclose it to the public.
And whose decision was it? Who had the power to make the decision about whether or not the evidence was sufficient to make a determination of whether there had been an obstruction of justice?
Prosecution memos go up to the supervisor. In this case, it was the Attorney General and the Deputy Attorney General who decide on the final decision. And that is based on the memo as presented by the U.S. Attorney's Office.
I think you've made it clear that you've not looked at the evidence. We can move on. I think you've made it clear, sir, that you've not looked at the evidence, and we can move on. Will you agree to consult career DOJ ethics officials about whether your recusal from the 14 investigations that have been discussed by my colleagues is necessary?
I don't see any basis for it. I already consulted with them, and
you have consulted with them about the 14 other investigations?
About the Mueller case.
Have you consulted with the career DOJ ethics officials about the appropriateness of you being involved or recusing yourself from the 14 other investigations that have been referred out?
On what basis?
Conflict of interest, clear conflict of interest.
What's my conflict of interest?
I think the American public has seen quite well that you are biased in this situation and you've not been objective, and that would arguably be the conflict of interest.
I haven't been the only decision maker here. Now, let's take the Deputy Attorney General, Rod Rosenstein, who was approved by this Senate 94-6 with specific discussion on the floor that he would be responsible for supervising the Russian investigation.
I'm glad you brought up that.
Okay.
That's a great topic.
He has 30 years experience, and we had a number of senior prosecutors in the department involved in this process, both career and non-career.
Yes, I've read the process, sir.
Disposition.
I have another question. And I'm glad you brought that subject up because I have a question about that. Earlier today, in response to Senator Graham, you said, quote, that you consulted with Rosenstein constantly, unquote, with respect to the special counsel's investigation and report. But Deputy Attorney General Rosenstein is also a key witness in the firing of FBI Director Comey. Did you consult with I'm not finished.
Yeah.
Did you consult with DOJ ethics officials before you enlisted Rod Rosenstein to participate in a charging decision for an investigation, the subject of which he is also a witness?
My understanding was that he had been cleared already to participate in it by the.
So you had consulted with them and they cleared it?
No, I think they cleared it when he took over the investigation.
Did you
That's
consult?
my understanding.
You don't know whether he's been cleared of a
He-
conflict of interest?
He would be participating if there was a conflict of interest.
So you're saying that it did not need to be reviewed by the career ethics officials in your office?
believe
to
it
determine if it was appropriate?
Well, I believe it was reviewed, and I
And what
would
was the
also point
finding?
out this seems to be a bit of a flip-flop because when the president's
Sir,
supporters
the
were challenging
flip-flop, I think, in this
Rosenstein-
case is that you're not answering the question directly.
What?
Did the ethics officials in your office, in the Department of Justice, review the appropriateness of Rod Rosenstein being a part of making a charging decision on an investigation which he is also a witness in?
Yeah, so as I said, my understanding was he had been cleared, and he had been cleared before I arrived.
In making a decision on the Mueller report?
Yes.
And the findings of whether or not the case would be charged on obstruction of justice? He had been cleared on that?
He was the acting attorney general on the Mueller investigation.
Had he been cleared
He had been.
to make,
I am.
by your side, a
I am
decision
informed that before I arrived, he had been cleared by the ethics officials,
of what?
serving as acting attorney general on the Mueller case.
How about making a charging decision on obstruction of justice?
That is
the
what the
underlying
acting
offenses, which include him as a witness.
You know, that's what the acting attorney general's job is.
To be a witness and to make the decision about being a prosecutor?
Well, no, but to make charging decisions.
I have nothing else. My time is right out.
Thank you. Senator.
That's why Bill Barr did not want to show up today. He said, "Look, my ass already got roasted, so I'm not trying to get it roasted again." Joseph, this is an administration that has clearly said, we don't care what y'all got to say. And Democrats can't be punks. You got Nancy Pelosi, who's trying to stave off folks in her caucus who want to impeach him. Okay, I understand that political game. But what you cannot do is have an administration that says, oh, we don't care about y'all calling to testify. We don't care about your subpoenas. You're irrelevant.
Just the arrogance is just breathtaking. I mean, and one of the things that Greg had brought up about this is we have a rule of law or we don't. Either we have people who are going to testify and tell the truth or we don't. And you saw some clear, I think Senator Whitehouse called it like masterful hair splitting, and he's trying to like parse his words so carefully that he doesn't trip himself up. But Harris got him. I mean, she nailed him to the wall because this is what she does. And it was very clear that there was not a lot of speechifying. It was direct. It was to the point. It was a cross-examination that we should get used to seeing from this administration, and forcing him to answer some uncomfortable questions, which to this date they still haven't. And that's one of the reasons why that he is not going to the House of Representatives, because they're going to have another prosecutor question him.
That's the
And
reason.
so in order to keep the lies consistent, you got to avoid anybody professional who knows what they're doing to question, because so often there's a lot of speechifying and not a lot of getting to the point.
Greg, NBC is reporting Natasha Bertrand that the House Judiciary Dems are negotiating directly with Mueller for his testimony, bypassing Attorney General Barr.
Brother, that's where it's going to come to. I mean, in William Barr, you have an irrelevant man, a relic of a prior age, a man who believes in what Dick Cheney called the expanded power of the executive branch of the government. We don't answer anybody. He filled out his job application for this job by saying that I'll protect the president. The president do whatever he wants, and that's how he got hired. But the thing he's truly afraid of, and Kamala Harris, you're right, I mean, she eviscerated him. He threw everybody he could under the bus. And she's a former prosecutor, as are many senators, Senator Leahy, others. These are lawyers, they're lifetime prosecutors, Blumenthal. But that House side, I listened yesterday to the motion that Jerry Nadler introduced that they passed through to allow, as you said, Joe, which is within the rules of the House, trained lawyers on the House staff to question him. That is the thing that he is terrified of. And when they threw every procedural roadblock they could yesterday into that, and Nadler just very calmly went on and pushed it through. But you're right, Joe. That is what he's terrified of, because this man has lied. He lied on record yesterday, and he should have been walked out of that room in handcuffs, because this is a constitutional crisis of the first order.
Absolutely. And I agree, Dr. Carr. And here's what's going to be the test. Democrats said to everybody, and not just people who were Democrats, people who were, independents, and people who are Republicans and do vote Democrat from time to time, listen, give us the power in the House and we will execute for you. Where are we now? When Nancy Pelosi came and gave that address late this morning, there was not any follow through. What is going to be next? What process will be next? And so I think what's happening now is that with what Trump's people, that administration has in place, we don't abide by anybody else's rules except for our own. That's proven, in theory, to be more and more true with the inactivity of the Democratic Party to say, we're going to start impeachment proceedings, as you said. Well, since you did not show up to something that you were told that you had to be at by Congress, then we're coming to pick you up and we're going to take you to jail. So absolutely. I think right now, this month is really going to be a show and prove of what Democrat leadership said, that when you give us power, this is what we're going to do in return.
Right. And look, and I said it, all these conservative trolls on Twitter, because I said yesterday that if Obama did any of this, Republicans would be coming after him. And clearly some conservatives tweeted it out, and then they're like, oh, Obama was so corrupt. Let me just remind y'all, do you recall any indictments? No. Do you recall any cabinet people having to be forced to resign? Nope. Do you recall anybody pleading guilty, going to prison like a lot of Trump's people? Nope. That's what I'm saying. Nice try. But the reality is, this administration is corrupt. This administration is amoral. This administration has no character, has no values. They are thugs. They are grifters. That's what they are. And how do you treat a thug? You punch a thug. Come on, brother. How do you treat a grifter? You go after them. If Democrats had any sense whatsoever, they would say, you ignore a subpoena, we're sending federal authorities to your door. And if you ignore them, we will arrest you. There are 3 branches of government in this system. That's right. Judicial, executive, and legislative. All 3. It's called the equal branches of government. And you cannot have any party, I don't care if it's Democrats or Republicans, say I'm going to ignore one of those branches. Richard Nixon tried that. And the Supreme Court affirmed that the Congress had the right to hear those tapes. And what did he do? He quit, because he knew the moment they pressed play, he was going to be impeached. The issue that you have here is an administration, a president, Donald Trump. I keep saying the hashtag, we tried to tell you. They had no honor or no decency. This is how he's always operated. And so the question is, will Speaker Nancy Pelosi, will she have the guts? Will Steny Hoyer? Will Congressman Jim Clyburn? Call him out. Will Congressman Hakeem Jeffries? Yes. Will the Democratic leadership literally say, you are not going to ignore the rule of law? Ball's in your court, Democrats. Do you have the guts to actually do it?
Trump has one thing, though, that Nixon never had, which was a Republican Party that's complicit in a lot of these. It's true. I mean, the Democrats got to do what they got to do. I mean, there's no question. And
you can't be scared to do it.
Right.
And you can't be focused on, well, this might hurt us in 2020. Guess what? You did that BS in 2016 and you ass still lost.
That's right.
And no, you swing when you can swing.
That's right.
Absolutely.
That's what you're supposed to do.
No, that's the point. You know, it is interesting because I don't have a deep investment in this country in terms of its alleged moral superiority. We know it's not. American exceptionalism is a myth. But if we're going to talk about living in a society, we all live here. So we have to continue to work to try to make it better for us. You know, it's very disturbing to hear Lindsey Graham, who God only knows what they have on him to make him act this absurd. But for him to say, I'm going to call John Roberts and see what he thinks about, as you said, Joe, he got the Republican Party, but he's also got the federal judiciary.
Well,
Are they willing to throw this whole system over?
Yes, they will.
Well, yeah, and that was a tacit call, and that's what's got me most disturbed about this whole thing, is that they're ignoring subpoenas at their peril. Richard Nixon went to the White House, or went to the Supreme Court, was ruled 9-0.
9-0.
Is that going to happen?
It won't happen this time.
We are very much looking
Not
at,
this court.
at potentially a split decision
How about
over the very nature of the Constitution.
That's
and
right.
to me, that's infuriating.
That's
and
right,
it's just
Joe.
ridiculous, and it's absurd. And of course, when you've got nothing to lose, hit. You know, Democrats need to do what they got to do. But we also need to be a bit realistic about the system, and that is that the Supreme Court is a little shaky in my view.
Oh, very shaky,
sad.
very shaky. Here's the
Yeah,
deal,
it
folks.
is sad.
Speaking of infuriating, 3 months ago we had the Fulton County DA on this show because he wanted to call federal agents to testify in the case of Jamario Robinson, who was shot 76 times as police tried to serve 2 arrest warrants for aggravated assault on a law enforcement officer. Folks, there were 14 law officers who were on the scene that day of the shooting from 8 different law enforcement agencies. The family has filed a lawsuit saying that the officers conspired among and between themselves to unreasonably stop, seize, shoot, and injure Jamario Robinson in violation of his constitutional rights to destroy and fabricate evidence, to complete false, inaccurate, and misleading reports, and to make false statements to superior officers in order to conceal their wrongdoing. Well, I got an email this week from members of the Robinson family, say they saw that we were covering this story, and his mother, Monteria Robinson, she wanted to speak. And so she joins us right now, along with Rashid McCall, senior investigator for Operation Research. The family hired him to look into this case. Monteria, first and foremost, our thoughts and prayers go to you for the loss of your son. I also appreciate your family reaching out to me directly to have you on the show, and we certainly we're glad to have you on. It's been 3 months since the Fulton County DA came out and said he wanted to bring them in for questioning. Then he had to withdraw those subpoenas. The federal government put pressure on him, saying you cannot question federal law enforcement officers. That has to be troubling to say that somehow that they cannot be held accountable or even dare to question for an act that left a man dead.
Correct. And I don't know if you know a whole lot about my son. My son, his name is Jamario Robinson. You know, he was a student athlete at the time of his death. He attended Tuskegee University. He was a biology major. He was actually in his final semester. And with all of that being said, just the fact that it has been, you know, almost 3 years. You know, we had 2 years and 9 months with no accountability. And these officers are still out in the, you know, controlling our streets. You know, they're in the community. You know, we want them off the streets. They should not be out here protecting and serving the public, because realistically, it's like I don't even know what to say. It just doesn't make any sense. Why are they still working? Why are they still out here in our community patrolling our streets? You know, we're not safe as long as they're out here in our community.
Rashid, you are a senior investigator working on this. What have you been discovering?
Yes, senior investigator with Opposition Research, Investigative, and Protective Services. This is one of the most heinous cases that I have investigated in my 21-year career. It's beneficial for people to get the scope of what happened if they went online and looked at the video that I uncovered. And it was only with the video was I able to determine that this was not a shootout, the false narrative that they originally gave, but this was an execution. So when you go back and look at that video, the video opens up with, "Let me see your hands." And it's followed immediately with automatic fire. And that automatic fire, in addition to other shots, continued in excess of 3 minutes before a flashbang is thrown, which, if you understand that type of ordnance, it blows out your hearing and your eyesight. And then there's a lull. And when you watch the video in terms of that lull, you see these police officers on the outside, because the video is shot from an outside perspective, but they're outside just chilling. And we know police officers just don't chill in a gunfight. After that law, you hear the video ending with automatic fire. And once that video was discovered and analyzed, I went back up to the top of that landing, cut open the carpet, and actually found the bullets that ended the video. Those were promptly taken to a ballistic expert. We compared them up under a microscope and determined that those were bullets that are consistent with bullets that are carried by law enforcement. And we even traced those bullets back to the weapon that they were fired from, which is an MP5 made by Heckler & Koch, which is a weapon system select fire that is normally carried by military and law enforcement. So when all this evidence was put together, it was clear that Jamarian did not participate in the shootout, that he was executed. And once he was shot with that last volley of gunfire, to add insult to injury, he was handcuffed and dragged down 20 steps and thrown into the living room to die out, as they hoped this story would. And that is egregious.
Monterio, I want to ask you, the fact that you had 8 law enforcement agencies, 14 officers serving a couple of warrants, and for them to literally ignore a district attorney who wanted to investigate this and ordering folks, he accused the Department of Justice of trying to sweep this under the rug.
That's absolutely correct. You know, as Rashid indicated, you know, there was not a search warrant, number one. This was not a federal crime. This was actually a state crime. After they shot and killed my son, and I'm going to give you a little details, my son was shot 6 times in the palm of his right hand, 5 times in the palm of his left hand. He was shot all down his arms, his torso, his thighs, his groin, his shins, his feet. As he stated, flash grenades were thrown, landing on his body. He was handcuffed and he was dragged down a flight of stairs. With all of that being said, I'm sorry, my phone is beeping in.
It's okay, go ahead.
With all of that being said, you know, this was a heinous act committed against my son, and we deserve accountability. You know, an officer's job is to assess a situation, de-escalate, and resolve the issue, not come with prejudice. And on that day, it didn't matter whose son it was. Just so happened on that day, it was my son.
Absolutely. And I think we have to be clear in terms of this intergenerational violence, right, that is visited on us each generation. Our grandparents' generation, it was Emmett Till, right, and Jet helped to expose that, and that united the civil rights movement. It gave push and purpose to the civil rights movement. In my parents' generation, it was Mark Clark and Fred Hampton who were assassinated up in Chicago. And, you know, when you talk about that incident, you have to talk about Assata Shakur and all the other people who disappeared, never to be heard from again today, and those who had to go into political exile, or those who were framed for murders that they didn't commit, like Geronimo Jijaga. So for our generation, we're dealing with the same issue. And this is a prime example in terms of Jamario Robinson's case. This is intergenerational violence that has to stop. All right. Black lives matter. And we have to hold these officers, as well as any other officers that serve and protect our community, accountable.
Well, Martaria Robinson and Rashid McCall, we appreciate both of you. Feel free to keep us updated on your civil suit, and we'll certainly stay on top of this case as well.
Thank you for having us.
All right.
Thank you.
I appreciate it. Thank you so very much. All right, folks. Just a couple of stories before I go to break real quick here. Go to my iPad. The Lawyers Committee just put this tweet out. Breaking, we worked with the NAACP, Hogan Lovells, Andrew Goodman F., and many more to file suit challenging Tennessee's new third-party voter registration law. Tennessee has some of the lowest registration in the country. Lawmakers should be working to make it easier, not harder to vote. And so the Lawyers Committee, that Tennessee law, of course, could criminalize folks who are trying to register people to vote. And so they are on top of this. Also, we told you yesterday about Crystal Mason, of course, the sister who was sent back to prison after she illegally voted. This is a tweet that Sam Levine put out. Knew the Texas Court of Appeals will hear oral arguments on whether Crystal Mason, sentenced to 5 years for illegal voting, should get a new trial. Arguments will be heard June 4th in Fort Worth, Texas. This is the actual statement from the court there as well. Also, if you go to GoFundMe, she's been there for 7 months. She's also in danger of losing, she hasn't had a job. She's been in prison. She's now being transferred to a reentry home. She still faces 5 years in state prison. 5 years in state prison as a result. And so, because remember, she was sentenced because it was a violation of her parole on the federal level. So she still faces 5 years in state prison. She's on the verge of losing her home. And her kids are impacted as well. And so they've created a GoFundMe for Crystal Mason. And so you can look that up, and we'll also push that on social media as well. We're going to go to a break right now. When we come back, we're going to talk to a woman who was there, who was the one who read the script for Boys in the Hood, and was the one who recommended that movie be made to the movie studio, and that set John Singleton on a path to become the youngest and the first African-American ever nominated for an Oscar for Best Director. Stephanie Allen will join us next to talk about the life and legacy of her dear friend, John Singleton. That's next on Roland Martin Unfiltered. You want to check out Roland Martin Unfiltered? YouTube.com/Roland S. Martin. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. There's only one daily digital show out here that keeps it black and keep it real. It's Roland Martin Unfiltered. See that name right there? Roland Martin Unfiltered. Like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. That's YouTube.com/Roland S. Martin. And don't forget to turn on your notifications so when we go live, you'll know it. All right, folks. HBCU Giving Day. Let's go ahead and do that right now. Reason being, I'm going to be actually speaking at this university on Saturday for the commencement. I'm looking forward to it. So go ahead and roll it. It's Virginia University of Lynchburg, located in Lynchburg, Virginia, founded in 1886. Notable graduates include Noel C. Taylor, Ann Spencer, and W. Henry Maxwell. If you want to support them, go to VUL.edu, VUL.edu. And again, I look forward to giving the commencement speech this Saturday to the graduates of Virginia University of Lynchburg. So it's going to be a great time had by all. Folks, we have been talking all week about the death on Monday of John Singleton, passed away at the age of 51. His family has also been encouraging black men to get tested for blood pressure because John suffered from hypertension for a number of years. Many people have talked about his impact on Hollywood, the number of people who he put in films their first shot, folks who also had never produced before, never directed before, folks who had never done all kinds of different jobs. But even John Singleton needed somebody who believed in him. So when he wrote Boys in the Hood, he submitted it to a number of different people. And my next guest is someone who was actually read that script. Stephanie Elaine joins us right now. She has known John Singleton for his entire career. Stephanie, welcome to Roland Martin Unfiltered.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
So I'm reading so many different stories about John, his work, and then so I came across the story where you were the one who was reading scripts for one of the studios, and you came across this thing called Boys in the Hood.
Yeah, it's something like that. I was actually in the story department. I had just been promoted, and I was looking to replace myself in the story department with a person of color. And John, I'd already actually read one of John's scripts, which we need to make now. It's called Twilight Time. It's an all-female starring script. And he was talented, but I heard he needed a job. And so I was interviewing him to take a reader job.
Wow.
But he only wanted to talk about one thing, and that was his latest script called Boys in the Hood.
So you're interviewing him for a job to read scripts, and he's telling you, no. I got a script. I need you to read.
Exactly. But it was even worse than that because he said, you can't read it. because I'm going to direct it, and I know how studios do you. And so basically, I had to chase him for 2 weeks to get the script.
Whoa.
And
Stop.
then
Hold up.
Yeah.
Hold up.
Yeah.
You trying to hire him to be a script reader for the studio. You got this 22-year-old kid out of film school, never directed, telling you how this is going to go down, and you got to chase him?
That's exactly right.
Okay, I know at one point you said, I don't know who this arrogant Kappa think he is. Yeah, I gotta go. Man, I got my Alpha shirt on, so I had to go ahead and do that. But no, so what are you thinking? Like, why am I chasing him down?
Because I'll tell you why. Because as soon as he started to talk about this story, I was enthralled. I knew that it must have been good because he felt it, he lived it, he was so excited about it, he could see it. And so basically I did track it down. It took me 2 weeks. I got it. I sat in my little tiny nook and I read it, and I was just streaming in tears. I went to school in Inglewood. I knew those kids, and I was like, wow, this is the whole reason why I'm here, to get this movie made. And I just made it my business to do like whatever I could to make it happen. But it was going to happen anyway, because John was John, and he just was going to. I was lucky basically to be in a spot where I could help.
So the studio says, yes, we'll go ahead and do it. And then John Singleton says, oh, by the way, I am directing this.
No, he didn't bait and switch. He said, here's the script, and I am going to direct it. And then I think in the room, Frank said, well, what if I paid you $100,000 or $200,000, just for the script? And he was like, you could keep your money. He didn't care. He knew that was his destiny in a crazy, beautiful, lovely way. He knew that was his destiny, and it was infectious. Like, so he sat at the table, everybody said yes, and then in 2 months we went off and started making it.
Were you telling yourself, I ain't never seen a young black man roll into a Hollywood studio like this?
Never. But and it was different because Spike was making his own movies. He was raising his own money and making his own movies. So, and John was so enamored with Spike. He loved Spike. Spike was like his idol, and really somebody who made him feel like, I have to do the West Coast answer, like what's happening out here, and yeah.
We were talking the other day, I was talking to Michael Schultz, and I said to Michael Schultz that he only made 8 films. And Schultz said, it's not about number. He said, it's 8 quality films.
Mm-hmm. It's 8 quality films, it's the TV shows, but you know what? It's even more. And since his passing, I have been blown away by how many people felt that he was there for them, that he read their scripts, he gave them notes, he tutored them, he let them shadow him on set. I truly believe Boys in the Hood is an incredible legacy in all of the work that he did, but an even bigger legacy, I think, is how many people he inspired and how much time he gave as a creative godfather to a couple generations of black filmmakers. Last time you talked to him? A couple weeks ago, we were we were chatting about some business we had, and it was almost time to get back on that boat, because I'd been on the boat a couple times. He was an amazing sailor, but I started sailing with him at the very beginning, so I do have a crazy story where we almost went under on the boat, but he stuck with it just like he did with everything, and he became a master sailor, and I just picture him on that boat.
My panel has some questions. I'm going to start first with Joseph.
Hi, Stephanie. Nice to meet you. It just sounds wonderful. This is quite an incredible story. Can you talk a bit more about his legacy? I mean, I know that he basically was a phenomenon, but a lot of people don't know or haven't talked about the fact that he nurtured and mentored some other people behind him, and that he probably is going to open the door for so many other people. Are there people in the pipeline who you think we might think about or keep an eye on? And also, sailing, really? John Singleton from South Central? That's fascinating.
For years, he's had a beautiful sailboat in the marina, and he goes out on it every day. He goes out and he invites people out, and we sail up and down, and he points out the land and the whales, and it's pretty amazing. It's beautiful out there. John helped so many people. You know, just from that first amazing entity called Boys in the Hood. Every single actor on there. But it's, like I said, it's more than that, because then the next time he did it again. Next time it was Janet, who had never had a feature role, Janet Jackson, and Tupac. You know, he managed to, and then Maya Angelou, you know, was in Poetic Justice. That was amazing. We shot that right after the uprising in '94. God, it just goes on. You know, and Craig Brewer is a perfect example, because when I read Hustle and Flow, I fell in love with this voice. I had been trying to shop it, trying to find somebody. I gave it to John, and it took him a couple months, but then he read it and called me back, and he was like, "This is so dope. We're going to make this movie." We shopped it again, and then when nobody wanted to do it, he was like, I'm writing the check, you know, and Craig Brewer is very much a product of John's mentorship and benefactorship, and yeah, we made 2 movies together with him. But it's not even that. Like, the younger people, the people who are in their 20s, Lena Waithe and that whole crowd. Like, he's mentored so many people. I don't even know how he could do it, because he works too.
Erica.
Great to be able to speak with you. My question is, with John Singleton, you worked with him on several projects. So what was the most impactful project that you worked on John Singleton with, and then why was that the most impactful project?
Well, that's a great question. I mean, I would have to say Boys, and it was because it was my first movie ever. It was his first movie. Neither of us, we were faking it. We were just faking it till we made it. And together, because I was the representative at the studio, I literally just been there a few months from the story department. They had to promote me to vice president just to oversee the movie, which I had no idea what that meant. I brought in a producer friend, Steve Nicolaitis, who basically taught us both, like, how to make a movie. And, you know, I fought with John. John was fierce in his vision. And he really taught me how to protect the artist's vision. And he was right. You know, arguments that I had with him, he was absolutely right. And so I really learned how to produce artists, how to produce auteurs. And you know, 9 months later, we were on the carpet at Cannes, and it did change the world, that movie. So that was my first movie. That was John's first movie. Nothing's really topped it, except for, I would say, you know, kneeling at the feet of Maya Angelou on set, or Hustle and Flow, which everybody in town turned down, and then we sold it for a whole lot of money at Sundance to all the very same people who, you know, had turned it down. So that was a big celebratory community movie that we all chipped in and did what we could. But there's so many memories. I mean, it's hard to. You know, my son is an actor, and he starred in Snowfall. And so at the very end of 2 in the morning, I get this text, and it's John Singleton and my son, Wade Elaine Marcus, hugging and grinning, and they're on set, and John was directing Wade in an episode of Snowfall. And that was, of course, a huge full circle moment.
Greg Carr.
Stephanie, my sympathies, and it's really wonderful to hear these stories. You know, I'm thinking about how much has changed and how much hasn't changed. And for you to be sitting at Columbia, just new there, and be able to push this through, how is it still difficult for our artists to have those pathways to stand in their truths and tell their stories? I'm asking that because, of course, he was influenced by Spike and Robert Townsend and others, but I'm thinking about another set of L.A. creative artists coming out of UCLA, the so-called L.A. Rebellion. You know, Haile Garima, Charles Burdett, one of the great directors, of course, Julie Dash and others. That nexus between independent filmmakers who say, I'm going to make this the way I want it, and industry filmmakers, people like you, who enabled John Singleton, who shows up out of USC, but also with an agent. In other words, he's kind of an anomaly. You know, how important is it for people like you to sit at that crossroads so that our young people don't have to compromise their vision, and so that these great filmmakers like Dash and Garima and Burdett, who've made this incredible body of work, could perhaps even be in the industry while preserving their independent insurrectionist mindset?
It's a really great question, and I have two answers for you. One, the gatekeepers have got to be diverse. They have got to reflect the constituency. You cannot have, you know, and it hasn't changed that much. When I was a studio executive, there was one other person of color, you know, in that division at the table, but it hasn't really changed that much. But what has changed are the opportunities, because the streamers. We made 2 movies in the last couple of years at Netflix. One is Juanita. If you haven't seen it, please see it. Alfre Woodard has never been #1 on the call sheet until Juanita. It is a quirky, lovely, wonderful, wonderful movie. And Burning Sands, which was about, as you know, Roland, a black HBCU frat guys who are hazing each other really harshly. And those movies could not get made in the regular system, right? And so we went to Netflix, which was at the time just sort of trying to figure out what they were doing. We had complete creative control. We could do whatever we want. And that's what's so exciting, because it's not just the big monopoly studios that have the control. There's so many other places to get money, independent money, streamer money, that allows the full voice. In the 90s, it was really gangster movies, comedies, you know what I mean? Now, there's so many authentic stories, they're all being told, and that gives me so much hope, because I feel like it's not a fad, it's not a trend, but it's finally, we're in a place where we can express ourselves. But the critics, we need more women critics, we need more critics of color, and we need more gatekeepers, you know, at the studios, at the agencies, and at film festivals that really reflect America as we really are.
Last question, Stephanie, from me, and that is, John was always intense. He always had that hard look on his face, but he also loved to smile. You knew him well. What would John Singleton be saying about all the love and praise folks are showering on him in the wake of his passing?
You know, Roland, it's the thing I keep thinking about, because I've been so sad and just so senseless and this, but then I look around and I see, you know, President Obama sent out the most heartfelt tweet about him, and so across so many different areas, from academia to television to film. Like, he was so beloved, and I know that he would be so tickled to see everybody just expressing their love for him.
Well, one of the things I love about social media is that I was sitting here reading the story, then I saw your name, and I go, okay, so I type your name in the Twitter, and I'm like, whoa, she's following me on Twitter, and I'm following her. And
true.
so,
well, you were in one of my movies. Come on now, you were in.
That's true. That's true. Beyond the Lights, yes, indeed. But thank goodness I send you a direct message, and I'm like, let's talk about John. I'm glad we were able to make this happen.
Thank you for giving me the opportunity, and thanks for what you do. Appreciate it.
I appreciate it, Stephanie. Thanks a bunch, and we'll chat soon. Take care. Bye-bye. Folks, tomorrow we'll be chatting with the founder of American Black Film Festival, Jeff Friday. John Singleton was a huge supporter of the American Black Film Festival, and so we will be chatting with him tomorrow right here on Roland Martin Unfiltered. Real quick, that girl Candace Owens, she quit Turning Point USA. That's all attention it deserves. All right, folks, if you want to support Roland Martin Unfiltered, y'all want to support Roland? That's about it. If you want to support Roland Martin Unfiltered, go to RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. Join our Bring the Funk fan club. We certainly would appreciate you supporting us. Again, your dollars make all of this possible. And the reality is this here. This is the place where we can talk about, just like John Singleton said, I'm going to do this thing my way. Well, somebody was asking me the other day, they said, so, one woman yesterday, she said, so when you're deciding stories, you know, what's your process? I said, just me. And then she said, that's it? I said, yeah, we got staff. I said, but just me. And I was trying to get her to understand, again, the power of ownership, but also when you have a vision, you live to that vision. And so it's important for us to tell our own story, control our own narrative, which also means we have to support our own as well. Y'all heard Stephanie say that when the studios did not want to make Hustle and Flow and they shopped it around, John said, I'm going to write the check. That's important, which is why we have to be willing to fund our own as well. And so that's what I do here. And some of y'all may not realize it, but I actually don't pay myself a salary for doing this show. We ensure everybody else gets paid. And so your dollars do make it possible. And so we want you to join our fan club right now. You can pay via Cash App, PayPal, Square, you name it. We got it all possible. If you want to mail a check, you can do that as well. So send us an email if you want to. So we shall see you guys tomorrow right here on Roland Martin Unfiltered. Be sure to tell a friend, like us, subscribe to our YouTube channel, like us on Facebook and Twitter as well, Periscope, so we can keep telling our own authentic story. And guess what? We don't have to ask anybody else's permission. Holla! Hey fam, want to check out Roland Martin Unfiltered, the blackest show on all of digital, cable, and broadcast. Check out our audio podcast. There's only one daily digital show out here that keeps it black and keep it real. It's Roland Martin Unfiltered. Press play. You want to check out Roland Martin Unfiltered? YouTube.com/Roland S. Martin. And subscribe to our YouTube channel. There's only one daily digital show out here that keeps it black and keep it real. It's Roland Martin Unfiltered. See that name right there? Roland Martin Unfiltered. Like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. That's YouTube.com/Roland S. Martin. And don't forget to turn on your notifications so when we go live, you'll know it. You want to support Roland Martin Unfiltered? Be sure to join our Bring the Funk fan club. Every dollar that you give to us supports our daily digital show. There's only one daily digital show out here that keeps it black and keep it real. As Roland Martin Unfiltered. Support the Roland Martin Unfiltered daily digital show by going to RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. Our goal is to get 20,000 of our fans contributing $50 each for the whole year. You can make this possible. RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. Want to check out Roland Martin Unfiltered? YouTube.com/Roland S. Martin. And subscribe to our YouTube channel. There's only one daily digital show out here that keeps it black and keep it real. It's Roland Martin Unfiltered. See that name right there? Roland Martin Unfiltered. Like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. That's youtube.com/Roland S. Martin. And don't forget to turn on your notifications so when we go live, you'll know it. Hey fam, want to check out Roland Martin Unfiltered? The blackest show on all of digital, cable, and broadcast. Check out our audio podcast. There's only one daily digital show out here that keeps it black and keep it real. It's Roland Martin Unfiltered. Press play. You want to support Roland Martin Unfiltered? Be sure to join our Bring the Funk fan club. Every dollar that you give to us supports our daily digital show. There's only one daily digital show out here that keeps it black and keep it real. It's Roland Martin Unfiltered. Support the Roland Martin Unfiltered daily digital show by going to RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. Our goal is to get 20,000 of our fans contributing $50 each for the whole year. You can make this possible. RolandMartinUnfiltered.com.